Hi, this is AI in 5 with Snorkel AI. Let's talk about why you still need labeled data with generative AI. My name is Elena Boiarskaia. Let's get started. So, when we think about generative AI algorithms, it's in the name, they generate the response for you. So, by default, you don't need a labeled data point to create this system. At the same time, when we think about machine learning and building predictive algorithms, this is where we needed labeled data to build good algorithms to predict outcomes that we were interested in. This is what really changed about generative AI because we no longer need to have a labeled data set to have some meaningful interaction with this AI system. However, when we think about generative AI end to end, there is a workflow that requires us to tune the steps to building a production ready system for your enterprise. And that all requires labeled data. So when we think about AI ready data, we're really talking about labeled data sets that are going to fit each one of these stages of building a generative AI system. And this is where we'll start with the prompt engineering and saying this is a good prompt that provides the responses that are good for what I'm trying to build. The RAG system, it's pulling the right context that is specific to my enterprise, to my domain knowledge that I want my customers to understand. That's a RAG optimization step. And then, of course, the fine tuning step where we're saying our system, our LLM is outputting responses that are appropriate for my customers. So it's polite, it's concise, it has the right tone. All of these things require some labeling to give the generative AI algorithm an example of what good looks like. You're basically saying, I want more of this. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. And this is where the evaluation step is at the core of this entire process because you're evaluating every step of the way what you're building. And so when we think about out of the box Gen AI, of course, it doesn't require labeling because you can get started right away. But more than likely, you will find that its performance isn't going to be up to standard for your enterprise to go into production to interact with your customers, because this is where we're making decisions. We're helping your customers make decisions about your products and services. And so we definitely want this system to be tuned to be exactly what you want. And this is the difference between a prototype and a production ready system. And so when we think about the different levels of building the system, there's going to be some chunking steps for your RAG system. There's going to be looking at the embeddings. There's going to be how are your responses being generated, the prompts that are being used, ultimately, again, going back to evaluating all of those stages. And this is where each of those stages will require some labeling. So again, labeling the document chunks, looking at the chunk embedding pairs, looking at the prompt chunk pairs. Again, is the prompt asking the right questions? Is the chunk pulled out correct for what you're looking for? So again, that RAG system optimization, looking at the correct responses that are being generated for the prompt. So that's looking at the generation error versus the retrieval error. Looking at the prompt templates, you're going to have many versions of the prompt templates because the prompts, in my experience, have been very instrumental in improving the system to give a better response overall. So prompt tuning is very important. And then, of course, the prompt, the context, and the response triplets are going to be exactly what you're looking for to go into production with that. So this is really about encapsulating your domain knowledge. And this is where the labeled data now comes in. So the domain knowledge, the expertise, the very specific tasks that you're asking your generative AI algorithm to do, they're all going to leverage some labeled data. And this is where our Snorkel's approach to creating production-ready systems comes in, because we're all about encapsulating SME domain knowledge inside this production-ready system. So we're really looking to streamline this process and combine that unstructured data that you're feeding into your LLM system, into your generative AI system, and combining it with SME knowledge so that you can really be sure that whatever you put into production is going to be specialized enough for your enterprise. This is where we are going to take you from the out-of-the-box prototype that's going to interact with your customers, yes, but how do you know it's interacting with your customers exactly up to standard? And then we're taking it all the way to the production ready state where we're encapsulating SME knowledge on top of that to be exactly what you want. And that's how you build reusable, custom AI ready data at scale.